Hello investigators and welcome to Until the End of Time. My name is Werner. This is going to be more starter deck leaks. The last week we've been getting a gradual one card a day, and I will be talking about all the cards, giving you my first thoughts. Not really a full review yet, that'll come later, but just some first thoughts and some reactions. If you want to see all of these cards, I have an Imgur album. Description below will have a link, as well as a spreadsheet with all of the cards we know so far. Okay, now let's get going. First card, Lucky Level 3. This is a 3 XP 0 cost event. There's no icons. Lucky, fortune traded, fast. Play when an investigator at your location would fail a skill test. They get +3 to their skill value for that test. That investigator draws 1 card. So compared to the original Lucky, level 0, you get a card draw, you get an additional +1 skill value. It gets to apply to any investigator at your location, and it is 0 cost. Now, it is also somewhat comparable to Lucky Level 2, which is Lucky Level 0, but with a card draw attached. However, I personally find that the Level 2 version isn't very good, but the Level 3 version is very good, and comparing Level 3 to Level 2 is kind of unfair, but Level 3 to Level 0 is makes much more sense. So this is a good card. It is, I think the additional +1 skill value isn't always going to be relevant. Depends a little bit on the chaos bag, obviously, but I can't really imagine a lot of situations where you are expecting to be passing tests at +2, but not at +3. But it does happen. And the more important things here is that it applies to everybody at your location. They get to draw a card, and it's 0 cost. That last part's pretty important because in Dark Horse decks, the 1 cost for Lucky used to be a bit of an issue, because if you wanted to keep up Dark Horse, you couldn't have the resource for Lucky, and you couldn't like LeBranch or anything in response. So you'd have to have 1 resource, fail, and then play the Lucky for the +3, which is tricky. This just takes that whole problem and throws it out the window because it's now free. I think this card's really good. It is in the faction that has Eucatastrophe, which is also a really powerful 3 XP event that helps you pass tests. That being said, this being a team-based card is also very cool, so I definitely like this. I don't think it's overpowered. I think it's reasonably balanced at 3 XP, and I like this as a kind of toolbox in Survivor. Next up, we have the basic weakness from Winifred's deck, Reckless. It is a skill weakness, and it is a flaw. Commit only to a skill test you are performing, of any type, that has no other cards committed to it. Other cards cannot be committed to the skill test. If this test fails, return the skill to your hand, and then forced, if Reckless is in your hand at the end of your turn, reveal it and lose 2 resources. Now, the general consensus on this card is that it's pretty mild. Obviously, if you don't need skills to pass your skill tests, then it's fine anyway. You can just commit it to the first skill test you take. If you pass, great, it's done. Even if you don't, only losing 2 resources isn't too bad. Like, we've seen other weaknesses of this type, and usually they deal like damage or horror. I'm thinking of the signature weakness for Silas, the book ones, which deal 1 damage and 1 horror, I believe, when you don't get rid of, or maybe 2 damage. Don't have it in front of me. So this is pretty reasonable. The only investigators that I think are really hurt by this are investigators that are relying on using skills a lot. But even then, if you have even a single test you can just pass, then whatever, you're fine. And yeah, you might just need some kind of skill booster somewhere. But yeah, I think this is a reasonable weakness. Again, it's not Winifred's signature weakness, so it can go into your weakness pool, it can hit anybody, but it's actually fairly mild. And if you're like, you're a guardian or a seeker and you're just gonna punch something or, investigate somewhere, you just throw this in, you're probably fine. So yeah. Next up, we have the first translation for the Forbidden Tome. We have the Forbidden Tome Secrets Revealed. And so we saw the Forbidden Tome last time. It was one of those untranslated cards. You have to spend 5 actions translating. It's a pretty tricky thing to do. But when you do, one of the upgrade options is the Forbidden Tome Secrets Revealed, which is a 3 XP 1 cost asset with a Intellect, Agility, and Wild icon. Item, relic, and tome traded. It takes up the hand slot, and it has the normal translation text where you can only include it by upgrading from the other card and by having the "you have translated the tome" in your campaign log. And then it has action, 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 and exhaust the Forbidden Tome. You may move to a connecting location, discover 1 clue at your location, and you reduce this ability's cost by 1 action for every 4 cards in your hand to a minimum of action. So that's a complicated ability, but basically if you have no cards in hand, up to 3 cards in hand, it's a 4 action ability, unless you have an extra action somewhere you can't even do it. If you have a 4 cards in hand to 7 cards in hand, it is a triple action. If you have 8 cards to 11 cards, it is a double action, and from 12 cards up, it is a single action. And I think we have to see this card through the lens of it's probably going to be a single action if you are including this in your deck, because you're including a big hand-sized deck, Harvey or someone else running a couple of cards that give you more hand size. And if it is a single action, I think I kind of like it, because you get a free move and a free clue, basically, every time you use this. If you're Daisy, you get to use this for free. If you're Ursula, you can trigger your ability after you move, so that's kind of neat. Ultimately, we're going to have to see how easy it is for other Seekers other than Harvey and Mandy to have massive hands. So far, it seems like it's not that big of a deal. The problem with evaluating this card is that at the moment, Seekers are able to pull much worse, or break the game, basically, and this doesn't really break the game at all. But I do like that it's super cheap. It is essentially kind of a Pathfinder-ish ability where you get to move around the map and also pick up clues at the same time. It's a bit different than Pathfinder, obviously, but like spending 1 action to get a clue and then you get the free move, that's kind of neat. I like the ability a lot. I hope it'll be playable. We're just going to have to see. It depends a little bit also on what the other translations are, because obviously, if there's another version which is maybe way better, then this might not see a lot of play, which would be sad. I'm assuming there will be at least 2 translations, because otherwise things like Shrewd Analysis start making less sense. And also, they're probably not going to reprint Forbidden Tome in an expansion, so they're probably not going to have a chance to add more translations to this one later. So if they're going to do translations, they're going to do them now. So we'll have to see. Okay, next up we have a very easy card. It's Azure Flame level 3. Guess what? It's exactly the same as Azure Flame level 0, but you get +2 willpower. So Azure Flame is the Jacqueline combat spell, and it is literally the same upgrade as the Shriveling upgrade, where the same fight action, the same number of charges, the same cost, the same everything. I mean, you get 1 additional icon. You're not usually committing your spells a lot, and you get +2 willpower while fighting. It's fine. It's not too exciting. The problem that I found playing Jacqueline so far is that your skill value matters a lot less with her than with all of other investigators, because you start at a base of 5. If you have anything pushing you to 6, then her ability is probably going to just make you pass checks anyway. That being said, it's nice to have upgrades for the spells. If we get a level 5 upgrade as well, then it's going to be nice to have this for the Arcane Research ability. Otherwise, we're just going to have to wait and see. I find the level 3 upgrade for Shriveling pretty unimpressive, and I find this one equally unimpressive, because it turns out Mystics don't want +2 willpower. They usually can get plenty of willpower. They want cool, flashy abilities. Okay, next up we have a very mysterious card. It is the Mysterious Raven. 1 cost asset, 0 XP, intellect icon in Survivor. It is an ally and creature, takes up the ally slot, 0 health, 1 sanity, and a fast action to discard Mysterious Raven and take a horror to discover 1 clue at your location. This card is tricky to evaluate. Okay, it's not that strong. However, it does have some corner case applications that are quite useful, and it might also hint at something else that will be very exciting. So let's start with the easy stuff. If you are Yorick, then using this to get clues is pretty useful. You can kill an enemy, maybe by evidence, you can get this back, you can use this to get a clue. If you're using the Cherished Keepsake, the horror doesn't really matter. And for especially solo Yorick, I think a lot of people were saying, oh, this is not a terrible card for him, right? Like, it is just a testless clue, which is pretty decent, even if it's 1 cost, an action, and a horror, which, not really competing with Working Hunts there, but hey, sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. Now, the reason I mentioned the hinting at something else is that we've seen Deja Vu, which is the 5 XP permanent card that gives you XP back when you exile stuff, basically. You get to repurchase your exile stuff for cheap. And somebody mention, or a lot of people notice that the art for Deja Vu is very similar to the art for the Stray Cat, which is weird because Stray Cat doesn't exile. And so people are kind of guessing that we might get a upgraded Stray Cat that exiles. And people are now also guessing that we might get a Mysterious Raven that also exiles. The assumption is going to be that that upgrade isn't going to have the ally slot. So you have, assets that don't take up a slot that have the same ability, but they don't discard, they just exile. And if that were the case, that would be kind of cool. One cost, one action ability to get a clue would be kind of neat, and it does work very well with Deja Vu. Of course, if it does exile, then it doesn't work with Yorick again, so we're gonna have to see. The thing is that survivors are often quite pressed for ways to get clues from very high shroud locations. Like, they can do it, but it's tricky, and this just bypasses a lot of the trouble. So, I don't hate this card. The thing is that it feels a little underpowered if you're just using it fairly, but on the other hand, there's probably going to be some shenanigans with this, and I just like the ability. So yeah, I'm a fan. We'll have to see what else comes with this card. Okay, then we have Extensive Research level 0, which is a 12 cost event, most expensive card in the game, with 2 intellect icons. It is an insight. It reduces the cost to play by 1 for every other card in your hand. Discover 2 clues at your location. So this is a downgrade from Extensive Research level 1, which was in Dream Eaters, and you can see on the right here, it's basically the same card, except the level 0 version is 12 cost. And I do actually think that changes who plays this card, because Extensive Research level 1 is a card I actually really liked in Joe Diamond, especially in his Hunch deck, because that gives a flat 2 cost reduction. So at that point, if you have even just 4 cards in your hand, it's a 4 cost get 2 clues, which is pretty decent. If you have any more, and being Seeker, that's not unreliable, it becomes a very cheap way to get 2 clues. The thing is that for Extensive Research level 0, that gets a lot harder, a lot faster. Just having 4 cards isn't enough anymore, because then you're at 6, and 6 cost for 2 clues isn't good. So the only place I see Extensive Research level 0 popping up is basically in those big hand decks, and then I'm kind of wondering why you're playing this. Because it's a payoff, sure, but if you're doing the current big hand shenanigans, you have ways of getting clues, and this isn't one of the better ones. So yeah, this one's kind of a head scratcher for me. I mean, obviously if you are Harvey, you get 12 cards in hand. This is a free Discover 2 clues at your location. That's kind of nuts. It's not the most nuts thing that can do, but here we are. And I do kind of like the double intellect icons. I should mention that. I like the fact that this has intellect icons, especially 2 of them, because it means the card's not dead. If you just need to investigate somewhere, chuck this in. It's pretty good. So yeah, not a card I would play in every deck, but definitely, not a bad card. And then we have today's spoiler, fresh off the presses. We have Dynamite Boss level 3, 4 cost event, willpower, combat icon. So that's not bad at all. It's pretty good upgrade. It is a tactic. Fast, play during any fast player window. Choose either your location or connecting location. Deal 3 damage to each enemy and investigator at the chosen location. This card blows up and then does a lot of damage. No, okay, terrible jokes aside. This card's really good. The basic premise here is that because it's during any player window, the ability to use this tactically to take out enemies is way better. It is a lot easier to time the playing of this card so that it doesn't hurt your allies. I mean, you might have to blow yourself up, but that's fine. I mean, the Guardians have been blowing themselves up since the core set, and at least now you don't take attack opportunity anymore, which is the same as the level 2 version, and this is just, this is basically the level 2 version, but instead of does not provoke, it's just fast, which is so much better. Works wonders on Stick to the Plan. Put this on your Stick to the Plan and have an out to enemies with 3 health. It's great. And just, I can very easily imagine that in a situation where you and your fellow investigator are at a location with a bunch of enemies and they just move out of the room and you just blow that room up. It's amazing. So yeah, big fan of Dynamite Blast level 3. I mean, throwing it at other locations basically just change much. You don't have to spend an action, but that wasn't the biggest part of the cost here. It's still being 4 cost means economy-wise it's a bit tricky, but it's just worth the cost of entry, I think. It's just so, it's a very powerful effect, and I think it just really demonstrates some of the higher power Guardian effects, where, you know, this on Stick to the Plan means you will always have this as an option for scenarios where you need it. And that's actually it for the cards. So thank you very much for watching. I will post the links to the spreadsheet and the Imgur album in the description below. And if you are interested, the new spoilers drop roughly at the listed time. So it's 2:30 GMT, 4:30 CST, CEST, sorry, and so on. You know, use the time zone converter if you want. They're in the Mythosbuster Discord server, but if you don't want to join Discord, just check the album. I upload the cards to the album basically as soon as I see them. So just keep an eye on that and you'll see all the new cards. So thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to making another video in a week, I guess. So see you then. Bye. Oh, sorry. I'll be seeing you until end of time. Almost forgot my own sign off.